Picture a 2-year-old on a playground. He's clutching a toy truck, screaming, "Mine!" Every parent in the room swoops in. "No, honey, we share. That's not how we treat people." Now fast forward 20 years. That same kid builds a $3 million business, and suddenly everything flips. "This is mine. My strategies, my opportunities, my time, my wisdom. I built this. Why would I give it away?" Same clenched fist, same hoarding instinct, just a bigger toy truck. We spend our kids' entire childhood teaching them that mine is a dirty word. Then we build empires on it. Here's what Maxwell nails. One person can't take credit for what it takes a team to accomplish. Leadership isn't about how far you can advance yourself, it's about how far you can advance others. Jesus understood this perfectly, and he didn't hoard divine authority. He multiplied it. He gave it away. He washed feet, empowered fishermen to become history changers. And here's the kicker. 90% of the people who subtract value from others, they do it unintentionally. But the 90% of the people who add value, they do it intentionally. That's not coincidence. That's discipline. I'm Tyler. This is Mission Driven Profits. Today we're talking about the law of addition. It's the difference between leaders who extract and leaders who elevate. And by the end, you'll know exactly how to make yourself valuable enough to lift others and why God takes it personally when you do. If you're building a biblical business empire where people matter as much as profit, subscribe right now. This content is completely free, and your subscription fuels the mission and helps us grow our tribe of kingdom entrepreneurs. And then comment below. What's your biggest value gap in your leadership right now? Is it time, recognition, development, opportunities? I read every single one, and they shape the future. So let's dive in. Gallup just dropped a stat that should terrify every business owner. 79% of employees are actively or passively job hunting because they don't feel valued. It's not that they feel underpaid, it's they're undervalued. And that's over $500 billion in annual drain on the economy. But here's where it gets personal for Christian business owners. We're generous with our tithes, but we're stingy with our presence. We'll write a check to the church, but we won't invest 30 minutes mentoring a struggling team member. We'll fund a mission trip, but we won't fund our employees' leadership conference. Why? Because deep down, we're terrified that adding values to others will deplete us. We're operating from a point of scarcity instead of abundance. We forget that Jesus fed 5,000 with a kid lunch, not by hoarding resources, but by releasing them. Maxwell says it straight. Are you making things better for those who follow you? Because if you're not leading, you're just managing your own ascent. I coached a $2.1 million client who was hemorrhaging talent. Exit interviews all said the same thing. Great pay, but empty purpose. We flipped his entire leadership model from extraction to addition. And within a year, retention dropped from 68%, and his team started recruiting their friends to work there. The shift? He stopped asking, "What can my team do for me?" And he started asking, "What can I do to make my team better?" That's the law of addition, and it starts with a heart check. Maxwell breaks down addition into 4 non-negotiables. But here's what makes this biblical. Jesus modeled every single one of them long before Maxwell ever wrote the book. And pillar 1, you need to truly value others. Maxwell says leaders must focus on others, not themselves. You need to believe in people before they believe in themselves. Jesus called Peter the rock when Peter was still a hot-headed fisherman who couldn't hold his tongue. He saw Paul as an apostle when Paul was still Saul the persecutor. He looked at a Samaritan woman with 5 failed marriages, and he saw an evangelist who would bring her whole town to faith. Stop waiting for people to prove they're worthy of investment. See their potential, name it out loud, and watch them rise into it. I had a client with a problem employee. Always late, defensive, disengaged. And instead of managing him out, we got curious. Turns out he was the sole caregiver for his disabled mom, and he was ashamed to ask for flex hours. We restructured his schedule, publicly honored his caregiving as leadership, and gave him ownership of a key project. 6 months later, he's a culture carrier and top performer. You can't add value to people you don't value as people. And in the second pillar, make yourself more valuable to others. Maxwell's inconvenient truth is, you can't give what you don't possess. If you're not growing, you're not adding. You're just redistributing your emptiness. And this is why episode 3's process matters. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Jesus spent 30 years in obscurity before 3 years of ministry. He invested in himself before he invested into others. He studied scripture. He learned carpentry. He developed wisdom. And when he finally started adding value, he had something worth giving. This means you don't get to skip the personal development and call it humility. You need to read the books, get the coaching, attend the conference, because the more valuable you become, the more value you can add. I see way too many Christian business owners playing it small because they think it's spiritual. Oh, I don't need that expensive training. I'll just pray about it. Listen, prayer is essential, but God also gave you a brain and access to wisdom. You need to use both. The disciples didn't just pray, they watched Jesus. They learned his methods, they practiced his teachings. Then they turned the world upside down because they had something valuable to give. And then the third pillar, you need to know and relate to what others value. This is where most leaders fail. We add what we value, not what they value. You give public recognition to an introvert who values private affirmation. You offer a promotion to someone who values work-life balance. You throw money at someone who's starving for purpose. Maxwell says this: mature leaders listen, learn, and then lead. Jesus was the master at this. He gave water to the woman at the well, sight to the blind, acceptance to the tax collector. He gave boldness to Peter. He gave intellect to Paul. He customized his addition based on what each person actually needed, not what he assumed they needed. How do you figure out what your team needs? You ask them. I know, radical concept, but try this. In your next one-on-one, ask them, what would make you feel most valued in this season? And then shut your mouth, listen, don't defend, and don't problem solve yet. Just listen. And then most importantly, you need to do something with what they tell you. I had a client whose assistant asked for one thing. They said, I want you to stop checking your phone during our meetings. That's it. It cost him $0. And she became his fiercest advocate because she felt seen. Addition is about grand gestures. It's about intentional, personalized investment. And the fourth pillar, you do the things that God values. Here's where addition becomes worship. Maxwell says it, but the Bible screams it. God values people so much that when we add value to them, he takes it personally. In Matthew 25, he says, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. When you invested in struggling employees, Jesus says, you did that for me. When you mentored a young leader, Jesus said, you served me. When you created opportunities for others to grow, Jesus said, you honored me. This changes everything. You're not just building a team, you're stewarding souls that God has personally invested in. When we serve others, we see them as valuable, and that transforms us, not just them. Jesus didn't need the disciples to accomplish his mission. He could have done it all solo, but he chose to multiply himself through others because he valued them. When you embrace that, addition becomes your default, not your discipline. These 4 pillars aren't tips. They're the foundation for biblical leadership. If you miss one, and your addition is just manipulation with a Christian bumper sticker. But if you nail all 4, you become the kind of leader that people follow into a fire. But here's the kicker. Addition requires 2 things that leaders hate: creativity and consistency. You have to get creative about how you add value to different people. And you have to be consistent enough that they trust it's real and not just a manipulation tactic. Jesus was wildly creative. Parables, miracles, object lessons, one-on-one discipleship, crowd teaching, but he was always wildly consistent, always loving, always serving, and always pointing to the Father. That's your model. Now let's see how Jesus made it look effortless. Let's study the master of addition. Jesus had 0 organizational budget. He had no HR department, no team building retreats, yet he built a movement that is still multiplying 2,000 years later. How? He added identity before responsibility. Jesus didn't start with, hey, go make disciples. He started with, come follow me. He added identity first. You're my disciples. You're fishers of men. You're salt and light. When Peter denied him 3 times, Jesus didn't subtract Peter's role. He added restoration. He said, "Do you love me? Then feed my sheep." Jesus gave Peter back his identity before giving him his mission. Your team needs to know who they are before they know what to do. Are they just employees or are they kingdom carriers? Are they order takers or culture builders? You define it for them and then they become it. Luke 10 said Jesus sent out 72 disciples with his authority to heal and preach. He could have kept that power to himself, but instead he multiplied it. And they came back shocked. They said, "Even demons shudder at us." Jesus wasn't threatened by their success. He celebrated it. Jesus handed Peter the keys to the kingdom. He told his disciples, "You'll do greater things than I've done." Addition means you're not the hero of the story. You're the hero maker. And he added grace to failure. Thomas doubted. Peter sank. The disciples fled. Judas betrayed. Jesus didn't subtract them from the team. He added grace. To Thomas, he said, "Touch my scars." To Peter, he said, "I've prayed for you." And to the fleeing disciples, he said, "Peace be with you." The only one Jesus subtracted was Judas, and only because Judas subtracted himself. Your failed team member isn't a write-off. They're a Peter in progress. Add grace and unlock glory. Jesus added eternally, not transactionally. Here's the difference. The world adds to get. Jesus added to give. He didn't wash feet to earn loyalty. He didn't feed 5,000 to boost his donor base. He didn't heal lepers for testimonials. He added value because people have value, period. Your addition can't be a tactic. It has to be a theology. You're not adding value to manipulate performance. You're adding value because God does, and you're made in his image. Souls over spreadsheets, people over profit. When you add like that, your team doesn't just work for you, they'd run through a wall with you. You want some real world proof? Meet James, $2.4 million construction company. He was stuck at that revenue plateau for 3 years, and his complaint is, "I can't find good people." We audited his addition, or lack thereof. He paid well, but invested zero in development. No training, no mentorship, no vision casting. His team saw him as a paycheck, not a leader. And we implemented the 4 pillars. James started weekly one-on-ones, not about tasks, but about dreams. What do you want to build in your life? Not just on the job site. He took leadership courses. He read the John Maxwell book, and he brought the lessons back to his foreman, and he modeled learning. He surveyed his team. Turns out they didn't want raises, they wanted flexibility and recognition. He adjusted schedules and started public win shoutouts. And most importantly, he started praying for his team by name, and he told them about it. He even funded one crew member's trade school when the guy couldn't afford it. 18 months later, revenue hit $3.6 million. His team grew from 12 to 22, and his Glassdoor rating went from a 2.8 to a 4.6. His closing line to me was, "Tyler, I'm not just building buildings anymore. I'm building men, and it's much more fun." Now that's addition, and it's available to you right now. So here's your action plan. Don't just watch this and feel inspired for 10 minutes. I need you to do something. And that first step, let's do the addition audit. Every single Friday, ask yourself the 4 questions based on the pillars. Did I truly value someone this week? Did I grow myself to serve others? Did I customize my investment based on what they value? Did I do something that honors God by honoring people? If you can't answer yes to at least 3, then you subtracted this week, even if it's not intentionally. Second thing we're gonna do is you're gonna pick one person and one pillar. Don't try to add to everyone at once, okay? You'll burn out and you'll do it poorly. Pick one team member per month, pick one pillar and focus on them. I need you to go deep, not wide. In the first month, truly value your CFO. Believe in their strategic potential, not just their spreadsheet skills. In the second month, make yourself more valuable so you can teach your ops manager something new. In the third month, learn what your admin actually values. Maybe it's not a raise, maybe it's a better chair or flexible Fridays. Addition is a long game. Jesus invested 3 years into 12 guys. You can certainly invest 1 month into one person. And third step, I want you to measure these multipliers. How do you know addition is working? Ask your team. Quarterly, anonymous surveys. 3 simple questions. Do you feel valued here? Are you growing here? Would you recommend this as a great place to work? If scores drop, you're subtracting. If they rise, you're adding. It's simple. Download the free audition audit template below. It's pre-built with these steps, plus there's a tracking sheet. Pair it with episode 4's compass, and you've got a complete system. Know where you're going and who you're going with. This isn't extra work, it's the work. Jesus built his entire ministry on it, and so can you. So I already hear the objection. Tyler, I'm barely keeping my head above water. I don't have time to add value. I need my team to add value to me. It's fair, but it's dead wrong. Here's the truth. Stingy leaders stall. Generous leaders grow. Not because of karma, but because people multiply what they receive. You add to them, they add to customers, to each other, to the mission. But if you subtract from them, they subtract from you with their efforts or their loyalty or their referrals. Jesus multiplied loaves and fishes in the middle of chaos. He wasn't waiting for a less busy season to add value. He did it in the mess. Addition isn't a luxury for when you've made it. It's the engine that gets you there. And here's the kicker. This episode builds on solid ground trust, which is episode 6. You want unbreakable loyalty? Give before you ask. Add before you extract. Addition isn't extra, it's everything. And remember, leadership isn't about how far you can advance yourself. It's about how far you can advance others. Give big. Humanity is watching. And more importantly, Jesus is. As mission-driven prophets, let's multiply the kingdom one person at a time.